Did you know there was a time when people actually paid to see other people's deformities? Now, that'd get you jailed instantly, and rightfully so. But back then, circus freaks were an actual thing, and people would travel great distances just to see someone with a physical abnormality. They'd hand over cash, step into a tent, and stare at the wreckage that was someone else's life. So join us for today's video as we tell you about the 15 circus freaks that actually existed. Number 15, Sia Khan. Sia Khan. Ibn Kashmir. Khan lived a very short, difficult life in southern Iran, but became a medical curiosity that still draws attention. He was born in 1913 near Lapui and grew normally until about 6 years old, when sudden, relentless growth set in. His family, facing poverty, displayed him publicly to survive. By his early teens, he was hired out for exhibition in Tehran. Later measured by doctors in 1933 at roughly 8 feet 6 inches, Sia Khan suffered from Proteus syndrome, which distorted his body beyond proportion. His arms were almost 4 feet long, his skull nearly 6 kilograms in weight, and he could barely support his head. When Dr. Gorban, founder of Shiraz Medical School, found him in the early 1930s, he arranged care and documentation. Sia spent his remaining years hospitalized until his death from pneumonia in 1938. Today, his skeleton rests behind glass in Shiraz. What began as exploitation ended as anatomy, an extraordinary life reduced to medical study and quiet remembrance. Number 14, Florence Shufflebottom. Well, Florence Shufflebottom grew up with sawdust in her bloodline. Her grandfather, William Texas Bill Shufflebottom, performed as a Buffalo Bill imitator. Her grandmother was a snake charmer. By 5, Florence was already part of the family act, handling snakes and standing as a target for her father's knife-throwing show. She later developed a trick called the kiss of death, placing a live snake's head in her mouth before snapping it free. Over time, she shifted from shock to skill, becoming one of Britain's finest sharpshooters. With her Winchester .22, she performed stunts that earned her the nickname, the British Annie Oakley. Her career ended abruptly when an audience jostle caused her to accidentally graze her mother's hand with a bullet. In 1957, she married Robert Campbell and later helped run a bingo hall in Selby. Before her death in 2014, she donated her family's circus archives to the University of Sheffield, a record of grit, precision, and a woman who lived unafraid. Number 13, Moira Orfei. Moira Orfei, who was born Miranda Orfei in 1931, was Italian circus royalty from birth. Her father, the clown Bigalon, and her mother Violetta owned Circus Orfei, and Moira stepped into the spotlight early. She became a rider, aerialist, dove trainer, and eventually built her own empire, founding Circus Moira Orfei in 1960. Her image was unmistakable: bright lipstick, a dramatic beauty mark, and a towering turban, plastered across posters in every town she visited. She also became a film star, acting in over 40 Italian films, especially in sword and sandal and crime dramas. Off-stage, she married fellow circus director Walter Nones and raised 2 children. Even as television eroded circus audiences, Moira remained the most recognizable circus figure in Italy. In 2006, she suffered a stroke during a performance, but continued to tour under care until her death in 2015 at 83. In Italy, Moira wasn't just a name, she was the circus itself. Unforgettable in both presence and performance, she was the legend. Number 12, William Pagel. Known to South African crowds as both ringmaster and lion tamer, William Pagel built his circus from grit, strength, and sheer persistence. He started as a blacksmith's son in Germany, qualified by 17, and spent his early years stoking ship boilers and peeling potatoes in Australia. There, he met Mary Dinsdale, a Yorkshire woman with a sharp mind for business. Together, they launched what would become Pagel's Circus. They toured southern Africa by wagon, performing acts with tigers, lions, elephants, and even each other. Madame Pagel famously worked with leopards and big cats, sometimes under hostile stares due to her husband's German background during World War I. Despite temporary internment and public suspicion, Pagel eventually earned South African citizenship. Known for his strength stunts and big cat control, his name became a fixture in towns across the countryside. Though the business was always financially unstable, Pagel's legacy lived long after his death in 1948. His circus once meant everything to rural South African entertainment. Okay, now let's head over to Number 11. Damu Dorree. Damodar, Damu Dorree, rose from a modest boy in Pune to one of the world's most respected animal trainers. Drawn to the circus through his uncle's troupe, he began working with acrobats before finding his passion inside the lion cage. By 13, he was training tigers under Scheller's Royal Circus, eventually mastering his craft without force or cruelty. His gentle voice and patience replaced the usual whip. After years performing across Asia, he joined French trainer Alfred Court in Paris, later touring America with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. Dorree's bare-chested Prince Damu persona, complete with turban and jewel-bright trousers, captivated audiences in the 1940s. During World War II, he served with the U.S. Army, lecturing on animal behavior and entertaining troops. When illness ended his career, he returned home to India, where he lived until 1973. Posthumously honored in the International Circus Hall of Fame, Damu Dorree left behind a legacy built on trust, respect, and calm mastery over chaos. Number 10. Xiao Liang. Xiao didn't start in the spotlight, he just happened to keep growing. Born in Henan in 1982, he seemed like any other child until gigantism took over. He reached 8 feet 1 inch by his late 20s, eventually confirmed by doctors in Tianjin in 2009. The condition ended his dream of playing professional basketball. An untreated foot injury from 2001 lingered for years simply because he couldn't afford medical care. That same year, a circus in Jilin offered him work. He wasn't just an attraction. He learned to do magic, play the saxophone, and handle traditional instruments like the cucurbit flute. His family, parents and siblings, are all of average height. Doctors advised him against heavy physical activity, but his health otherwise remained stable. Xiao never claimed titles or competed for records. He focused instead on performing with skill and pride. His height may have drawn crowds, but what kept them watching was what he could do once he had their attention. Number 9. Ferry Torres. Ferry Torres didn't just perform with reptiles, he lived with them. He was born Ferry Polderman in 1968 and grew up in Amsterdam's circus scene. His father ran Circus Franklin, and Ferry started out performing alongside a reptile handler named Kara Kavak. That path stuck. He kept crocodiles next door to his home and toured with venomous snakes, scorpions, lizards, and macaws. He gained a reputation for inserting his head into crocodile jaws and bore the scars to prove it. In later years, he shifted toward educational shows while staying deeply connected to Amsterdam's LGBTQ+ scene. He was a regular in the leather community and worked as a bouncer at Spiker Bar during the COVID-19 lockdowns. In 2016, he was arrested in connection with narcotics found in his alligator enclosure, though he claimed they belonged to someone else. Sadly, A was diagnosed with cancer and died in April 2023. His animals were safely rehomed. Ferry lived on the edge, but never without purpose, loyalty, or flair. Number 8. Ivan Fertsac. Ukrainian strongman. Ivan wasn't just an act, he was a national symbol. Born into a peasant family, he left his village for Prague and found work in the ring. By the 1920s, he was dominating strength competitions and building a reputation across Europe. Performing as Ivan Sila, he toured over 60 countries with acts that included bending iron, lying on broken glass under massive weights, and even lifting bulls. Some compared him to Croton, the ancient Olympic legend, an image he embraced. In 1928, he was named the strongest man in the world. After returning home in the 1930s, he stayed active in Soviet sport, later even working in local law enforcement. He never left the circus fully, continuing regional performances until his death in 1970. His legacy still echoes in Ukraine, with annual competitions and a feature film made in his honor. Fertsac didn't just perform feats. He redefined what physical power could look like on a world stage. Number 7. Katya Schuman. Katya grew up backstage. Born in 1949 in Copenhagen, she represented the 5th generation of the Schuman circus dynasty, one known across Europe for equestrian mastery. She started riding in shows at age 10 and became known for liberty acts, dressage, and Roman riding. Awards came early. Monte Carlo's La Dame du Cirque in 1974, London's Circus World Gold Medal in 1976. In the 1980s, she joined Paul Binder's Big Apple Circus in New York and became the first woman in the U.S. to perform the demanding Courier of St. Petersburg act. She married Binder and raised 2 children while touring. Her son Max was famously born in their RV just hours after Katya performed a show. In retirement, she bought a rundown farm in northern Denmark and turned it into a seasonal circus and animal sanctuary, preserving her family's legacy. Even now, surrounded by horses and hay, Schuman sees circus life as a blessing. Number 6. Joe Rolino. Joe Rolino's fame never came from headlines. It came from the things he could bend. Raised in Brooklyn in 1905, he grew into one of Coney Island's quiet legends. Without fanfare, he lifted 600 pounds with a single finger and folded coins like soft metal. He wasn't large or showy, just unshakably strong. Rolino served in multiple wars, lived clean, and avoided vices. His routine never changed. Exercise daily, no alcohol, no cigarettes, and never brag. To him, strength was discipline, not decoration. Into his 90s, he was still training and walking miles before sunrise. "I'm the strongest man you never heard of," he liked to say, and he meant it. In 2010, at 104, he was struck by a car while crossing a Brooklyn street. That's how his story ended. Not with weakness, but motion. Joe Rolino spent a century proving quiet endurance can outlast noise, vanity, and even time itself. So, what do you think about him? Number 5. Barbett. Barbett, born Vanderclyde Broadway in Round Rock, Texas, in 1899, learned to walk a wire by practicing on his mother's clothesline. By 14, he was performing aerial acts in drag. What made him famous wasn't just the skill, it was the reveal. Barbett performed as a woman, then ended each act by pulling off his wig and striking a masculine pose. In 1923, he debuted in Paris and quickly became a sensation. Jean Cocteau described Barbett as an angel, a flower, a bird, and based several characters on him. Man Ray photographed his transformation process. Cocteau cast him in Le Sang d'un Poète. After illness or injury, sources differ, ended his career, Barbett choreographed circus aerial acts, worked on Broadway's Jumbo, and coached Lemon and Curtis on drag in Some Like It Hot. He returned to Texas later in life and died by suicide in 1973. Barbett blurred lines long before it was art. He made it performance. Number 4. Ivano Orof. Ivano didn't grow into a performer. He became one out of necessity. As a boy, he was healthy. Then illness came. His body weakened. His skin turned pale and translucent. Some said they could read a newspaper through his chest. Others swore light passed clean through him. Whether from bone disease, extreme anemia, or something else, Ivano's condition made him otherworldly. He was billed as the transparent and ossified man, and eventually ran his own sideshow. Audiences weren't sure what to make of him. His face soft, posture fragile, voice low, but they couldn't look away. He stood on stage under lights not to provoke gasps, but to be seen as he was, a living puzzle. Orloff never performed tricks. He didn't need to. His body alone made him part science, part myth. He existed in a twilight space between life and specimen, between man and symbol. For those who saw him, the memory didn't fade. It haunted them. That was his art. Number 3. The albino sword swallower. Sandra Reed didn't hide from her condition. She built a career around confronting it. Born with albinism, she joined the James E. Straits shows in 1969, using the stage to educate rather than to shock. What began as public speaking turned into performance when showman Whitney Sutton encouraged her to learn sword swallowing. Under the guidance of master performer Ricky Ricciardi in Gibsonton, Florida, Sandra perfected a craft few dared attempt. Her sister Doreen lectured beside her, while their parents worked behind the curtain, turning the act into a family operation. Sandra later joined Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, eventually earning a Guinness World Record for swallowing 5 blades at once. She married Harold Big Jim Spohn, a well-known fat man of the circus, in the 1970s. Sandra's act wasn't about sympathy or spectacle. It was about control, courage, and self-definition. She didn't fight her difference. She performed it until the world learned to see her on her own terms. All right, guys, now, let's move to Number 2, the warthog. Carrie Acres didn't aim to please. Standing 3 feet tall and weighing nearly 300 pounds, she entered Barnum's sideshow in the late 1800s. But it wasn't her build that turned heads, it was her attitude. She was blunt, angry, and uninterested in playing the sweet or tragic role many expected from sideshow acts. Barnum himself called her impossible. Other performers feared her temper more than her tongue. Eventually, she was fired for being too difficult. But she wasn't forgotten. They called her the Warthog, a cruel nickname that stuck, not because of appearance, but because of how she roared back at a world that mocked her. Her time in the spotlight was brief, but her reputation lingered. Carrie didn't charm audiences. She forced them to acknowledge her. She wasn't loved, and she didn't ask to be. She stood her ground in a business built on pity, and that, more than her size, made her unforgettable. Number 1, Baron Pouchi. Peppino Magro made more noise than most giants, and he stood just 3 feet tall. He was born in Sicily in 1894, and at 15, barely reached 15 inches. After an earthquake buried his village, it was his size that saved him. He slipped through the wreckage and crawled out alive. He later moved to the U.S. and joined the Ringling Brothers, eventually becoming a sideshow fixture at Coney Island's Dreamland. Audiences knew him as Baron Pouchi, and he played the role with flair: custom suits, racing bets, women, whiskey, and constant flirting. He married a 5-foot-tall woman named Mavis Lane in 1931, but his wandering eye made the marriage short-lived. By the mid-1930s, he was back on Ringling's books, still a crowd magnet. Some came for the spectacle, others for his attitude. He may have been 3 feet tall, but in temperament, voice, and ego, Pouchi filled every room. He didn't just perform, he ruled the space he occupied. We hope you found this video interesting. If you did, be sure to like it, share it, and subscribe. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and we'll see you very soon.